Very good morning, everyone. It's time to start with the day 2 of our Media Chronicles. Let's just wait a couple of minutes. Some of the participants are still in the waiting room and they're joining us. So we'll wait for them and we will begin shortly. Our guest speaker for the day is already here with us. So as soon as the waiting room participants are allowed in, we shall begin. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to all the participants. And we are very grateful that you're here with us. And we shall begin the day two of the Media Chronicles. It is my proud privilege and an honor to introduce our guest speaker of the day, Mr. Jitin Paul. He's a marketing professional with over 20 years of experience dedicated to conceptualizing and launching marketing strategy, defining value propositions, building brands, managing customer experience, executing large media campaigns, and driving digital sales business. He brings with him a vast experience to share amongst all of us, and we're really looking forward to what interesting session he has in store for us. So let's not delay any further. Join me in welcoming him today. And Mr. Jitin, thank you for taking out time from your busy schedule to join us today, and the stage is all yours. So all the best, and hope everyone has a great session.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Pooja. So, firstly, thanks to the college, to the faculty. Before I start, and thanks to all of you. That I see 149 people. That itself is making me nervous. So, thank you for being there, all of you. And a special thanks to the person who's put up my picture where I look much younger, much better looking, and much more formal. So, thanks to that special person for putting up that picture. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to share my perspective on something which is my personal experience with the kind of work that I've been involved with, and that work largely is in the area of marketing and advertising, public relations. So it's almost like a marketing and communications role that I've played all my life. Some part of it was dedicated to advertising. I worked with advertising agencies for the first 5 years of my life, and then moved into marketing. And this, what I share with you today, is nothing but a perspective that I sort of built for my own self over a period, and I thought it'll be prudent for me to share it with you in a way, just pass this learning on to you. It's also in a way, paying a debt of gratitude back to the people that I've learned with. So some part of this, what I share with you, also comes from my experience with them, and it will also show you this. And I think in some way should show you, enable you, help you to understand that there is a difference between knowing something in a college scenario and actually doing something in a work scenario. And crossing that bridge is something where large part um, we need. I'm really sorry. Just give me a second. A large part we need to start growing up as professionals and individuals both. So here you go. Um, mm, Sorry, I'll start from the top. Okay, just a quick perspective on marketing is what this presentation is all about. I have not put the slides as to verbose because I like talking more than anything else, and I'm happy to actually take any questions after the presentation is over. So here you go. See, there are different ways to learn, and what I realized in college, and something large part that you would realize as communication and marketing students, is that there is a there is what we learn at college, and a large part of it is dedicated to theoretical knowledge, and some part of it from a practical knowledge standpoint, because I think that your faculty comes with certain amount of experience in the field of marketing and communication. Sometimes you have guest lectures such as me, coming on a regular basis sharing their perspectives. There are industry sort of assignments that you work on to get that perspective. But what you will see largely in the world around you is going to be a borrow of what we see in boardroom presentations and textbooks of marketing. I don't know how many of you are aware of this term called 4 Ps, which now is expanding itself to what they call 6 Ps. It's basically what they say is the bedrock trying to make a marketing strategy. And large part that is um, And large part that is uh, from a perspective of looking at what are the different aspects these four P's hold. So we say the first is the product, the second is the pricing, the third is the place. So what is the distribution for the product, and the fourth is promotion. And promotion largely is advertising and communication. Large part of the marketing work is dedicated to that. There are a lot of models like this. So there is some part of this modeling which happens, say, at a very basic level of what we call four P's. People have extended it to say, listen, there is a P called positioning which also plays a part. And then people have expanded it over a period of time to just add that one P into this existing framework that people had built almost, I think, 20, 30 years ago. Because four P's has existed at least for 20 years ago, for 20 years, because I'm that old in the marketing fraternity. It also then leaps from there, into the consulting aspect. And the consultants talk a very different language, and they need to expand their thinking beyond just the marketing domain into getting the larger companies' philosophy in and things like that. So they focus on, talking about terms like endowments. What are the endowments? This is a very new age term, by the way. It's very, very new in the McKinsey parlance. They used to call it strength almost like a year ago. What are the mega trends? So what is happening in the market? What are people doing? And by endowments, what are we mean to say is how strong is the company? Does it have the right capital in place? Does it have the right people in place? Does it have an existing customer base that it can target? And then mega trends, what is happening around you? How's technology changing everyday life, for example, and does your category get impacted by that? What are the insights from the market? So insights largely is one of the most often used words um, in marketing, and it basically means what does the consumer feel about this? And if you have a question, and if this is your question, what does the consumer feel about this? And how can you manage to sort of leverage it in building a brand, creating a strategy, carving out a segment, building a new product line, things like that. And basis all of this, you define what they call the big move. What is going to be my next big move? Now the fact that I know what my strengths are, what the trends are, insights are, and things like that, and how do I win? And both are both very, very practical sort of um, legs of this 5 point sort of program. How to win? I mean, what will be my day-to-day process in terms of winning, and what will be my big move, which also is a very practical way of looking at things. Um, you know, this is something which has been operating for the longest time, from, like I said, at least in the last 20 to 30 years. And it will continue to operate in the boardrooms and inside your school. Um, what you would also realize is that some of these terms will get borrowed from the Western world. In fact, the large part of these terms get borrowed from the Western world. So what is new when it comes to technology in the US, for example? What is new when it comes to consulting? What is new when it comes to marketing? And we are surrounded by this framework, and more you will see when you get into a college, when you come out of a college into a corporate world, you'll be surrounded more and more by these four P's and these 5 point models and all of that. And I very early realized the fact that yes, these are great models for me to start building a thinking process around, but at the same time they can get restrictive, and also in a lot of way they curb creativity. They curb creativity, they curb imagination. They box you as much as they help you. So they box you in a corner, so that you're just driven by these four P's, driven by these 4, 5 sort of point models that McKinsey is running, or an Ogilvy and Mather in advertising is running, or the biggest marketing company Unilever is running today. How do you break this mold, and how do you find your own originality is something which was my thinking initially. And this is just sort of a snippet of that journey, and I'm sharing that with you. And I feel that what is more important about learning is not what we learn, but how we learn. And everyone has their unique style of learning. And I think enough and more has been said about it recently. I think enough and more books have been written about it. Enough and more movies have been made about, how important it is that it's not about what you learn, but how you learn. In fact, people have taken it forward to say you should learn how to learn, and that's where coding is becoming so important amongst kids. And just giving my own example, my 7-year-old daughter is learning coding, and the biggest change that I'm seeing on a day-to-day basis is the fact that she's she's learning how to learn better. And I feel that large part that comes from you know your your own self. And when you look inside, these are the three things that you find. I think you find intent first. So you need intent. If you need to know how to learn, you need intent. And I'm just joining a lot of dots here because all these dots are actually quite close to each other and in a way quite similar to each other. You go to Google. Google is the number one intent engine today in the world. What you will type is what you will see. You will type any word, you will see a visual of that word. You will type any phrase, you will see a blog on that particular phrase. The point being, your intent is basically the starting point of any journey, and learning being a journey in itself will start with the intent. Are you intended to learn? And I think that rest then follows. I think the second is experience, something that I'm sharing with you right now. Okay, so that largely is the fact that I have learned over a period of time, partly from my own intention to, sort of learn more about marketing, more about advertising, consumer insights, and what I just shared with you, those four P's. But I think my experience is also a lot more about the people that I met, the those fast tracks in my learning that happened because of the experience that I gained from somebody else's experience. So I think after intention, what is one of the most important things is the experience that you've had over a period of time. And I think that's one of the bedrocks for learning per se. And one of the most important things are values. And the reason why I'm talking about these things, they sound very fancy, but the point is that these are very basic things. When you start looking at your own self and spend that half an hour with yourself every day, you will realize that eventually you are nothing but a sort of a mesh of the intentions you have, the experiences you've got, and the value system that you live with. And marketing largely is about a value system. Marketing is about values, uh, and that's what differentiates a Coke from a Pepsi, for example, or a Tide from a Surf, for example, or Mercedes Benz. The basic thing is values. So people understand values more. When you talk to them, uh, what people remember more is how you made them feel and not so much as what you said, right? So the point is they see that value. And I think it's across the business world. People hire you for the value that you bring to the table. People don't hire you for your institute. People don't hire you for your looks. Um, and people don't hire you for a lot of other things that you think people hire you for. People hire you for the value that you bring to the table. And I think these three basically make up for a large part of your learning. And as you go forward, I think take these three sort of things in your keep these three things in your head and see if there is some needle that's moving in any of the three areas, and you would know that you're learning something new. Okay, I'll just give you a few examples of people that I've been fascinated with, over a period, because these are the people who build their own models to understand things. And my urge to you actually from this presentation is that as much as you learn what is written in the textbook, as much as you learn and keep learning and listening to the same words that come from the McKinsey world, or comes from an Ogilvy and Mather advertising world, or comes from a Unilever world, marketing world, you need to build your own words. You need to build your own frameworks. And I think that that's your own debt of gratitude toward your own self. To be able to have your own language, to be able to have your own style, to be able to have your own voice, content, framework. And a few people that I really admire in this, and then there are people in the area of psychology, because that's one big area of interest for me apart from marketing, advertising, and communication. Maslow was if I'm not mistaken, German psychologist, and he basically said, "Listen, what motivates people, and I want to find out more about what motivates people." And he read every possible book around psychology, motivation, and behavior, and then he created what we called the Maslow's need hierarchy model. And what Maslow basically said was that this need hierarchy model works upwards. And so at a basic level, if your physiological needs are not satisfied or are satisfied, there is a step after that or before that. So if you don't get enough food, if you don't get enough sleep, your basic, your physiological need is not satisfied, you will never be able to come out of that end of the spectrum. So you'll always remain at this base and never come up. And after your physiological needs are satisfied, you'll go into a safety need, safety and security. Do I have enough money? Am I physically enough well kept care of or whatever? Am I working out enough? And am I physically fine? Do I have a house? Do I have a roof on my head? So these are basically safety needs. So when your physiological needs are satisfied, the next need that you look at fulfilling is your safety need. And that's when comes love and belonging. And large part of this we understand, right? We are talking about relationships, and we're talking about relationships, within family. We're talking about relationships that are romantic. We are talking about relationships that are, in a lot of way, mentor and disciple relationships. There are a lot of relationships which have very different nuance in each, but only comes or kicks in after your physiological and your safety security needs are satisfied. That's when you start thinking about somebody else. It's basically saying once you're independent is only when you can be an interdependent person. The next one is tricky. People push themselves for that. All this from the corporate world to the world of art to the world of science to basically be recognized, be known for something, to leave a legacy in some way. And I think this basically is called the esteem needs. These needs are actually the most important needs that operate today in our world. People are talking about how can I be the winner? How can I come first in the class? How can I realize my dream? How can I leave a legacy? How can I be recognized by people on the street? And I think esteem needs are largely driving a large part of people's motivations and behaviors today. Because I think the first three are in some way getting fulfilled. The final need is basically the need of self-actualization, which largely does not, which largely has nothing to do with the world around us. It's to do with us. There is an actual self, and we need to realize that self. It's nothing more than that. So, a lot of people who basically give up really high-flying careers. I've seen people changing tracks on their jobs after like 10 years, 12 years, from being, people who were like me, marketers, have shifted into being copywriters, and they've worked in advertising agencies and are very successful today. People who were engineers, who realized, listen, that's not my actual self. I'm a more creative person. I would like to be a writer. I want to be a art director. I want to be a film director. And there are so many of these examples. And uh, that is what largely self-actualization is about. So Maslow, just reading books, doing stuff, built his own model to explain human motivations and behavior. Hofstede is something that people use. So there is the psychologist called Hofstede who basically built a cultural model. Now he built this model for countries. He didn't build this model for human beings, but then a lot of people in marketing and advertising use these models. And the reason why I'm sharing, and I'm just going back and telling you that I'm sharing these models with you, because I want to tell you that people build their own models to understand life around them, to understand consumers around them, to understand countries and motivations that are there around them. So it's largely a country model. It starts with saying what is your core value? What do you stand for? If I were to use a phrase to define you, what will that phrase be? And that core basically is almost like a onion that gets peeled, or maybe an onion that comes together, but then it basically opens up to say what are the rituals that you usually have. So the fact is, a person who's a little ritualistically, somebody who sleeps late, picks up late, doesn't do things on a particular time, are people who are far more creative and intuitive than they are more disciplined and organized, right? So, and there is nothing wrong or right about either, but the fact is, their rituals point toward who you are. So if you don't actually, if you move your attention from the ritual and look at where the ritual points, you will see who that person is. And rituals are a big indication of the underlying motivations. I think large part we don't understand that rituals actually are a very big reflection of our subconscious self as much as it is of our conscious self. So whenever you are observing someone, please pay very, very strong, attention to their rituals. Then there are heroes. Who do you consider as heroes? See, if Donald Trump is my hero, and he's not, but I'm just saying that if he was, it says something about me, doesn't it? And I think in a way that defines your values, your core. So if I say Donald Trump is my hero, you will form a mental picture about who possibly I could be. And if I say, for example, that I prefer Amir Khan over Shah Rukh Khan, you will have your own mental image of what you feel about him. And the choices come from inside. It's an inside-out choice. So in that sense, also defines us in a lot of ways. And then symbols. I think symbols are representations such as what is the kind of coffee that I drink, for example. Uh, what are the kind of clothes that I'm wearing? What are the colors that I like? They are on the periphery, not very close to the core. But if you really want to understand somebody or understand a culture,
Yeah, it looks like there seems to be some technical glitch here. Let's just wait. He'll join us back. He's just joining us back in, dear participants. We're just waiting for him to join back. Apologies for the delay. Yes, sir. We will just 1 second. Can you please unmute yourself? I can't hear you. You can't? Okay. Wait. 1 second.
yes. So thank you, and sorry because the network today is.
No worries about it. That's okay. I think the rains are creating havoc everywhere. Here also for
So
us, it's been raining
yeah.
heavily, and many of our participants are actually sending messages that they're unable to join because of the network issues. So, but great, let's carry on. Uh,
Okay, so I think if you will make me a host, I'll be able to share my screen or whatever, because I
yes,
think right now when I've joined just like one of the regular participants, so it's not allowing me to share my screen.
just give me a second. Yes, yeah,
Okay, where is that?
yes.
No, not this. Let me HVPS not expected. Okay. Yeah, okay. I went through this. So the point being that, there are various models that people have put together in order to make sense of what they want to know more about, what is their intention in that sense. So a lot of people, like a Maslow, would want to know about motivations and behavior, or Hofstede want to know about how can I culturally sort of, build a model which is a cultural model for me to define countries better. And people have been using these models for now years and years, some 100, at least 150 years, since when Maslow built the need hierarchy model, and people still refer back to it as a practice to start putting down initial sort of understanding about individuals and cultures. And in the new world, there is um, a philosopher by the name of Simon Sinek. They're not called philosophers nowadays; they're called thinkers. So Simon Sinek is a thinker which operates in largely the business world. Uh, Comes from the Western, very hardcore Western sort of upbringing and cultural effect in that sense. And he presented what he called the Simon Sinek Golden Circle, which was largely around companies, not so much around people, but in that sense, it holds true for people as well. Like I said, things are connected to each other in some way. The Golden Circle basically says, if you want to build a company, and there is a very really nice TED talk by Simon Sinek, in fact, on TED. So and on YouTube, it's one of the most watched TED talks. Uh, and he talks about this entire concept of starting with your why. Because when he started thinking about saying what is the best way for one to build a business, he realized that the best way to build a business was not about um, building products, but having a philosophy. And he very beautifully illustrates Apple as an example to explain how Apple started with saying our why is to think different. Our why is not to be a computer company. And when they thought about that in that way, it completely changed the trajectory in which Apple went from there on. Because Apple never sort of put themselves into a box to say we are a computer company, and hence could move into what we know as mobile phones today. They are moving into Apple TV. They are moved into businesses that are completely unrelated to computers in that sense. But then, because they had defined themselves as a company that wants to think different, their own culture allowed them to expand beyond computers. And the consumers themselves accepted a brand like Apple to be in some other category instead of the category of computers. And that's the reason why maybe a mobile phone from Dell will not do that well, or a mobile phone from Lenovo doesn't do that well. A mobile phone from IBM won't do that well. They're all computer companies, but I think their core is about computers. And what he's very nicely spoken about is why it's important to focus on your why first before you look at how you do it, which is, Apple makes world class products, and that's how they achieve their why. And what do they do? They make MP3 players, which is an iPod. They make computers. They make mobile phones. So the what actually becomes the last part of the discussion. The starting point, the core of the discussion is, what's my why? Why do I exist as a company? And if it's for Apple, if it was to think different, then from there, you can get into any product category and your culture will support it. So now the model. The point is, these are all mental models, nothing but people uh, putting together of their intent, experience, and values, and then building a model out of it. And I would my limited point is that I would urge you to start building your own model with the knowledge and information that you have. It's a starting point to both imagination and creativity, but at the same time, you can create solutions of the kind that other people can use. A Simon Sinek model today is being used by, I think, 15 of the top five Fortune 100 companies, for example. Um, Hofstede's model is used by at least the top five advertising companies today in the world. Um, Maslow's need hierarchy model, like I said, is a starting point for psychologists to understand, um, clinical psychologists to understand where on this entire hierarchy is my patient when he comes and visits me. You know, it's just been built by people and other people are using it. And I think in order to build a model for yourself, there needn't be this entire pursuit of originality. The idea is you have to build something that is good, build something that is robust, build something that is, like I said, stands the test of time and other people can use. And you can beg, borrow, and steal from wherever you feel you can get this. But then eventually this sits in your head and you build a model around it. I'll just leave you with one example from my side, which actually dates me way back. Because I was, for the longest time, interested in psychology, and I read a lot of books around it. One very fascinating model of psychology, which I borrowed which was never used in advertising before, and which I borrowed to actually create some pieces of advertising or in some way add a little bit to the existing brand thought, was what we call the transactional model. So if you want to follow a little more about this, read a book called I Am Okay, You Are Okay. And that book will give you a little bit of a peek into what this model is about. But this model talks about mental state. It's a and they talk about every conversation to be a transaction. So it's almost like a tennis match, right? I'm playing with you. I send that ball, and literally like this, the ball is in your court. I send the ball to your court, and you basically reply back. The transaction or the conversation breaks down that when one of the people are not able to, if it's a debate, or one of the person doesn't if he's not interested. And this dynamic basically plays with all of us day in, day out. What the person the psychologist who actually put this transactional model, he first discussed the transactional models and he broke up the transactional model into three parts. He said we operate in three states: the parent, adult, and child state. And we talk to the other state on a parent, adult, and child state. So parent, adult, child is not from an age perspective. It's just a stereotype to define saying parent stands for wisdom and a little bit of authority, and adult stands for rational, logical conversations and style. The child stands for sort of diving deep into yourself and understanding your emotions better than expressing them more than understanding them. And this model was so, I mean, it was strange that we never saw it for advertising, because we are finally advertising is communicating to somebody, and advertising is a person. It's a stereotypical person in the way that it captures the culture of the brand, and it talks stereotypically to something inside you, which could be a parent, adult, or a child state. And we said, why don't we actually give it more thought and build something around it? And I'll just share with you one ad, which and you guess it for yourself as to which conversation is going on. So let me also just explain this model a little further to say a parent state doesn't need to always talk to a parent state. The parent state in a lot of ways talks to a child state largely. It also talks to the adult state. It also talks to the parent state. Similarly, adult state talks to a child, talks to a parent, talks to a child, or to an adult. So, for example, this is adult to adult conversation. Nice weather, sure is, you know. If this adult was having a conversation with the child, it's a nice weather, say, yeah, I hope a rainbow comes out today. Now, these are basically expressions of who you're talking to. I will play a few advertising for you, and you guess for yourself as to where does these states, which state is the brand coming from, and which state is the brand talking to. Um, mm, yeah. Okay, I'll just play this for you because this was basically, and this model basically influenced this ad. So here you go.
साल भर से आप लोगों से एक ही विनती करता आ रहा हूं कि भैया अपने बच्चों को पोलियो की खुराक पिलाइए, उनकी जिंदगी बचाइए। लेकिन आप हैं कि कुछ लोगों ने हमारी बात सुनी, लेकिन कुछ लोगों के कान पर जूं तक नहीं रहेंगी। क्यों भाई, हमारी सूरत आपको पसंद नहीं? किसी हूर परी को बुलाऊं क्या मैं? भाई मैडम आप ही बताइए ना, हमारी बात तो सुनते नहीं। सिर्फ दो वोट चाहिए।
सब नाराज कर दिया ना आपने उन्हें। आप समझते क्यों नहीं? ये अपने सारे काम छोड़कर 1 साल से आपको समझा रहे। प्लीज अपने बच्चों की भलाई के लिए उन्हें पोलियो की बूथ पर ले जाइए। आइए सर, प्लीज आइए, मैंने समझा दिया है।
ठीक है, आप कह रहे हैं तो एक एक पर नजर रखने वाला हूं आपकी बार में। अब की बार अगर ये लोग नहीं गए
जाएंगे तो... सर, जरूर जाएंगे।
5 साल तक के बच्चों को 4 जनवरी के दिन पोलियो बूथ पर जरूर लाएं।
2 बूंद जिंदगी की।
हाँ।
So, what we realized was the biggest problem was that people, in spite of knowing the fact that, you need to go to the polio booth, were not listening to a rational argument. They were basically, they were told saying this could happen to your daughter, son, because of the fact that you will not take her to or into a camp and things like that. So what we said was, why don't we look at a father figure, almost like a parent, equivalent that people consider as parents, and let that parent speak to that adult in the guy to say, listen, you better behave yourself and take your kid. It's almost like saying, listen, you need to get my my grandson to that particular clinic and get him vaccinated for polio. So this campaign did really well because, obviously there was a complete resonance with the consumer to say, listen, somebody is reprimanding me for not doing this. So it worked at an emotional level so much as also at a rational level. So it was a typical parent to adult conversation, which we brought about through this advertising. I'll also show you something which is an interesting one, which we defined for one of the brands as being that. But tell me what you think.
Kiss me, close your eyes and miss me. Close your eyes and kiss me. I can reach your lips on your fingertips. I can see your smile come on my lips, and happiness in your eyes. Kiss me. Close your eyes and miss me.
Have you felt the new silk? Softer, smoother, silkier. Cadbury Dairy Milk Silk.
This is largely a parent to child to child conversation, and we realized that there is always dairy milk was always built on initially for children. So it was just for us to make it relevant for the adults, and we said, how do we make it relevant for the adults? By actually looking for the child in the adult. and that's what the brand did. So the brand, the brand actually started with a campaign way back, almost 20, 25 years back, which said "Asli Swad Zindagi Ka," and then moved on to various other communications. But at the core of the brand was a child talking to a child in the adult, and suddenly the category opened up for us. The category from being largely a child-focused category became an adult-focused category. The sales just doubled, tripled over the years because your consumers were not only children, they were adults, and in some cases, really grown-up people. You know, it just expanded the category because it appealed to the child in you and not to the child. And uh, the, so, just saying that it's just one model that sort of starts redefining the way we look at advertising, marketing, communication, uh, and a lot of ways our own lives. So yeah, that's basically from me.
Thank you so much. That was very enlightening and I think very insightful as well because incidentally, the other day in our class, we were discussing about this NLP wala, the adult, child and parent, the entire concept of it. I think
Yeah.
some of the students from our college can relate to it, but it was very good. Thank you so much. We'll now open the floor for some questions. So we will just stay online for a bit and see if there are any questions. Dear participants, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them up either on the WhatsApp groups or here as well. Just there is some praise first, the enjoying and amazing to hear the great and experienced people out there. Thank you so much. And there is a question. Could you please tell us about your education? Okay.
Okay, so I'm a classically educated guy. I'm an MBA from Mumbai, in fact. I belong to Himachal, so I've done my graduation, born brought up in Himachal, which is not Uttaranchal. Himachal is closer to Punjab. No, I'm just telling people for Bombay because they confuse Uttaranchal for Himachal. So Himachal is where Shimla is, and all of us are born and brought up there. I came here, did my MBA from NM, um, specifically, specializing in marketing, advertising, and communications management, and then worked, like I said, with 5 years with the Gillian Mater. It's an advertising agency, and then I worked in financial services for the longest time. Now, in a sense, I'm on my own. I'm based in Pondicherry and with my wife and 2 kids, and I work from here. And the COVID situation has made it even better because now everybody is working from home. So yeah, so that's about me. I see a question from Jennifer Anthony says,
Yes.
what is the name of the
Name
book
of the
which
book.
you earlier mentioned?
Yes, yes.
The book is called I'm Okay, You Are Okay. I don't remember I think Eric, I don't remember the author's name
I'll
completely,
just check.
but he's written a lot of books around psychology. One of his famous quotes, in fact, is that either you can have a good life or you can have a good play. And that largely defines how we need to sort of walk the thin line between a bit of drama and excitement in life and some practical aspects too. I think he's a great author. I think you should definitely read I'm Okay, You're Okay. It's a very short, 100-page, less than 100-page, pocket-sized book. So there you go, Jennifer.
Thomas Anthony Harris. That's the author of the book.
Yes. Yeah, Thomas Harris. Yeah.
Okay, just a second. The questions are coming in quickly now. Can you please elaborate the child, adult, parent module once again? Okay.
Okay, I will basically say that I would leave it to you to elaborate for yourself, but let me just say that in every person exists a child, adult, and parent, and that's how we live. There is a parent who basically is authoritative, a parent who's wise from experience, how typically our parents are, right? Somebody who is in that sense a little old school as well, and all of us could be after a point. And then there is an adult who's rational, clinical, almost to the extent of being brutal about making conversations and having transactions. And then there is a child who has a deep sense of empathy, love, affection, compassion, guilt, greed, and all of that. And I think when I see I see all these things in my child. So I'm saying all these states exist within us, and with these states, we interact with other people in their states, and that's what a transaction analysis is all about.
Which brand marketing ad campaign would you say has adapted to the pandemic while everyone is staying inside? A campaign.
Okay. Okay, so I can't share that campaign with you because it's my campaign. It's going to come out in a couple of weeks, and you will see it. And remind me, Pooja, I will ask this. I'll send the copy to you. Please share it with the students.
We'll do that. We'll absolutely.
I think so I would say first the categories which have adapted. I think not only adapted, thrived. So the online category has thrived. Because you don't have to go to a shop. The retail industry is practically shut down because of that. So I think from a category perspective, these categories have adapted really well. If you ask the Swiggy, he just leaves your food outside. The Amazon guy doesn't actually ring your bell, just leaves your food outside and just messages you and things like that. These are small adaptations in style. But there is a campaign that's coming up that I'm working on, which is basically celebrating the entire concept of humans needing to see each other in flesh and blood, and and the entire energy and the vibe that creates.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that as much as there are brands adapting to the pandemic, there are brands actually who are hopeful and looking ahead to say what will happen after the pandemic, and isn't that all of us are also thinking?
Yes.
After a point, all of us are refusing to adapt. We are getting out on the streets. We're going and doing our regular stuff because I think there's a bit of adaptation that will happen. But I think the brands which will be successful are the brands which will, in some way, defy the pandemic, not being unsafe, but defy the pandemic in the way that the brand character is.
Okay. How do you see today's trend of digital marketing?
So that's a very, very big motherhood question. So I can only say that digital marketing is just a form of marketing. And that's what I've always believed. It's basically marketing on a digital platform. It's almost like saying that television offers you a audio-visual one-way communication platform. In that way, digital offers you two-way, one-way, multi-platform multi-platform media opportunity. Radio offers you only audio. Papers offer you only a static, two-dimensional opportunity. Digital offers you every kind of opportunity. And that's why the entire consumer need for media is converging into digital, because digital is basically nothing but like a blanket media for everything. Starting from a two-dimensional post that you will see in a print advertising, to being able to hear podcasts, which are nothing but radio, and being able to listen to a TV film on YouTube, which is nothing but a replacement for TV, and to be able to even have communication and conversations around it on a Twitter or wherever. It just gives you the entire spectrum of what you would want from a media. And the future of this is, I think, threefold. I see the future as communities. I see a lot of communities coming up. Like as cities exist, I see communities existing, which will be bound together by consciousness, which is very different to what the consciousness exists today in the offline world. Like, for example, geography defines us, right? In a lot of ways, our religion defines us. In a lot of ways, even somebody with a beard or not having a beard actually will be two different people and stereotypically may not hang out with each other. I'm just saying that people will define their own communities. and it will be a very fascinating and interesting way to see as to how people define it. So I see communities, I see high velocity content, and because of which is happening actually. I don't see that in the future. High velocity content means that the topic of today is not going to be at the topic for tomorrow. The content is going to move at very high velocity, and that's why attention spans will become shorter, which is again happening. And I finally think that people will mature up to the internet and use it for um, upskilling, which is happening. Like people like Coursera, like this webinar, for example. I think people will use it wisely, and I see that happening more and more, and people will benefit society and people around them and the communities at large on the internet in a lot of ways by doing that. And that's my hopeful self talking, but I'm seeing people doing it, so I think that's something in the future.
That's in the future. How do you overcome the fear of talking to people and putting forth your ideas? I think it's in connection with the advertising. So for example, if you have an idea, that's what I'm understanding, Pranali. Putting forth your ideas, how do you overcome that fear?
Okay, so if you're talking about stage fright, I have tremendous stage fright, so there is no overcoming it. But I also feel that you will always be scared of sharing an idea if you feel that the reaction matters a lot to you. And I think that is the reason why you are scared to share an idea. It's not because you're scared, it's because you're looking for a certain level of validation, which is okay. I think that's fine. But after a point, you have to slowly let go of this entire world of validation, because people liking or not liking your idea really depends on space and time that you're in and the people that you're meeting. Believe me, and I can say that from experience.
Great presentation. Thank you for sharing. According to you, what is the one thing that makes an ad stand out?
Oh, that's good. What makes an ad stand out? I think relevance.
Okay.
I think it comes over impact. I think it comes over visually looking good. It comes over a lot of things for me. So if I were to count the top 5 things that are important, I think impact is really important. And I'm not saying in order of priority. Impact is important. Uniqueness is very important. Attraction is very important. People need to be attracted to that. I think also in a lot of ways, how should I say it? Now that is becoming one important feature, which is it needs to make a difference in some way. The ad, like movies are doing, some of the movies are doing. But I think relevance scores above all of them. I think that the ad needs to be relevant to the person, which means I'm just saying that the next level of the ladder to relevance is empathy, which means that if it's relevant, then it's empathetic. And if it's empathetic, it works. It works for the person that you're talking to.
True. Very well said. What are your thoughts regarding ambush marketing strategies used by rival brands, such as Burger King versus McDonald's?
I think they're doing it for their own sake and their own fun. They're not doing it for the consumer.
What is your take on tropical marketing? What things should be taken care of when you practice tropical marketing, majorly on social media?
Listen, I don't have any idea about tropical marketing. So you will have to educate me more. I'm not that well versed on the digital media side, but I could read up and send my answer to Pooja.
Okay, we'll do that. Can we sell our good? I can't understand this.
Can we sell our goods in India with emotional appeal?
Goods. The second word is
goods,
just goods. Yeah, the product. Okay, in India with emotional appeal. Okay.
Yeah, you can sell. In fact, in India and world over, you can only sell it with emotional appeal, largely with emotional appeal, because eventually, people it's a very I'm forgetting the lesson that I learned, but it practically meant that people uh, don't uh, don't make a decision uh, from their rational side. People make their decisions as a composite, and human beings largely are emotional beings. Motivations are behaviors being so closely correlated to each other tells you that human beings are largely emotional in nature. And even if you're telling a story, even for storytelling, as a advertising marketing for storytelling, you need to be more entertaining before you can even reach out to the person and deliver the message. So yeah, emotional sells in India.
So I guess questions are there. And any advice for young students who are into advertising?
I can only say try to learn on your own. And I think independent thinkers are missing, both in advertising as well as largely in the business world. I think that's what the business world needs today. We need independent thinkers, and not people who have searched Google and got the answers, but people who have something to say about something. And always, just when you're doing the most, and advertising is full of that kind of work. It's after insurance is ranked as the most stressful job ever, and that is because you'll work late hours. You do stuff that you don't even know will see light of the day. Sometimes you do stuff that you don't even know why you're doing. And in the midst of all of this, just keep some bit aside for learning something out of it, which you can use for yourself as an independent thinker. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much once again. I would request Prachi ma'am now. She's a part of our mass media department to formally thank you. Prachi
Yes,
ma'am.
am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, Raj,
Yes.
you are audible. Thank you,
First
ma'am.
of all, good afternoon, everyone, and all present here today. On behalf of Ram Niranjan Jhunjhunwala College of Arts, Science, and Commerce, I would like to begin with thanking Mr. Jitin Paul, sir, for sharing your experience and dynamics in the horizon of marketing, sir. We are pleased to have your participation in our lecture series, The Media Chronicles, today, and we thank you for your valuable contribution, sir. Thank you, all the participants on board today. Last thing for the day, the feedback form link will be shared on your WhatsApp group. So, kind request to all the participants to please fill up the feedback form. Thank you once
Thank
again.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.